Don't touch the bags with your black hands. They're getting dirty. The words sliced through the boutique like shattered glass. The background jazz suddenly sounded like a mockery. The scarf in the Pearl woman's hand slipped an inch, nearly falling. The young couple froze, exchanging alarmed glances. Even the sales associates, trained to maintain composure at all times, looked up sharply, eyes wide. The speaker was Clare, the boutique's floor manager. She was 29, ambitious, and always dressed in the store's uniform, a sleek black blazer, pencil skirt, and pumps that clicked like commands against marble. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a polished knot, her lips painted a confident red. Her expression now, however, was sharper than usual, smug, almost triumphant, as if she had just established her authority over the entire room. Her gaze was fixed on the woman she had just humiliated. Maya. Tall, elegant, and composed, Maya stood with her fingertips hovering above a luxury handbag on the central display. She wasn't flashy in her appearance, no diamond necklaces, no designer label screaming from her clothes. She wore a simple but perfectly tailored dark blue sheath dress, paired with heels that gleamed but didn't shout. Her natural curls framed her face, and her skin glowed under the boutique lights. Her hand, just a moment ago poised to touch the soft leather of the handbag, froze mid-air. Slowly, she lowered it. There was no anger in her expression, no visible crack of hurt. Instead, she smiled, just slightly. It wasn't the smile of someone amused. It was the kind of smile that unsettled because it carried a weight of patience, a weight of knowing. Maya looked directly at Clare. Her voice, when it came, was calm. Tell me, Clare. Is that store policy? Or just your personal opinion? The silence thickened. The customers shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between the two women. Clare lifted her chin, emboldened by the attention. Our policy, she said crisply, is to protect merchandise from mishandling. These handbags cost more than some people make in a year. We can't have them smudged. Her words, meant to sound professional, carried an edge of disdain. She wanted everyone in the boutique to hear, to silently agree with her judgment. Maya tilted her head slightly, as if studying a puzzle. Her tone remained steady. And you assume I would mishandle it? Claire's smirk deepened. Let's be honest. You don't look like the type who belongs here. A ripple of discomfort moved through the boutique. The young couple averted their eyes, pretending to be fascinated by the wallets. The pearl-clad woman frowned but said nothing. Even the sales associates avoided eye contact, their training screaming at them to stay neutral. Maya's gaze did not waver. She let the silence stretch, and then said quietly, "You think these bags are beyond me?" "They're beyond your league," Clare snapped, her voice rising, echoing against marble and glass. The words hung heavy, shameful, undeniable. It was then that the boutique's glass doors slid open with a soft hiss. A man in his early 30s rushed in, clutching a sleek tablet. His name was Daniel, the assistant manager. His tie was slightly askew, his expression flustered from hurrying across the city. He glanced around, scanning the boutique, then his eyes landed on Maya. He stopped dead. His expression transformed in an instant, from routine stress to shock, to respect, to urgency. His posture straightened. His entire demeanor shifted. He breathed, his voice carrying through the boutique. "You're here." Clare blinked, confused. "Daniel? What are you?" But Daniel was already moving quickly toward Maya, his voice louder, filled with a nervous reverence. "We weren't expecting you until next week. Your office upstairs is ready. Do you want me to call the driver? Should I?" Claire's head jerked toward him. "Office? Daniel, what are you talking about? Who is she?" Daniel froze, staring at Clare like she had grown two heads. "You don't know." He turned, addressing the entire boutique now, his voice firm. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Maya Thompson, the founder and owner of this brand." The silence was electric. Then gasps rippled through the boutique. The man on the bench dropped his phone in his lap. The young couple exchanged wide-eyed stares. The Pearl woman put a hand over her mouth. Even the sales associates' eyes widened, though they tried to mask their shock. Claire's face drained of color. Her smirk dissolved into slack-jawed disbelief. She stumbled half a step back. "Owner," she whispered. "She's the owner." Maya didn't look at anyone else. Her eyes were fixed on Clare, steady and unreadable. Her faint smile remained, but it was no longer patient, it was decisive. "Tell me again, Clare," she said softly, her words cutting through the thick silence. "Do my hands make my bags dirty?" A collective breath sucked in across the boutique. Customers shifted, some nodding subtly in Maya's direction, as if to silently support her. The Pearl woman murmured, "Good for her," under her breath. Claire's throat bobbed. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Maya turned slightly, gesturing toward the hallway that led to the offices. Her voice remained calm. "Walk with me, Clare." Claire hesitated, her pride and shame colliding visibly on her face. Then, under the weight of every eye in the room, she nodded stiffly and followed. As Maya's heels clicked against the marble floor, the boutique seemed to inhale as one. Before disappearing into the hallway, Maya paused. She turned to the Pearl woman holding the scarf. "The charcoal color suits you better than the ivory," she said gently. The woman blinked, startled, and then smiled, gratitude washing across her features. "Thank you," she whispered. Maya gave a small nod, then walked into the back with Clare trailing behind her. The boutique exhaled. But the air was heavy, charged. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something that would not be easily forgotten. The office behind the boutique was worlds apart from the glittering showroom. Where the sales floor gleamed with polished marble and glass, the office was stripped down, practical. A long wooden table dominated the center, covered in fabric swatches, leather samples, and sketches pinned under glass paperweights. The scent of rich leather was stronger here, unmasked by perfume or music. Maya walked in first, her steps unhurried, her heels clicking softly against the polished wood floor. Clare trailed behind her, stiff, her face flushed pale. The door shut with a decisive click, muffling the faint hum of the boutique outside. Maya set her handbag down on the table and turned. Her posture was calm, but her eyes were unyielding. "I'll speak first," she said, her voice low but steady. "Then you'll speak. And then we'll decide what happens next. Do you understand?" Clare swallowed hard, her throat tight. "Why, yes." Maya studied her for a moment longer, then began. "When I was 12, Maya said, her tone even, my mother took me into a consignment shop. It wasn't fancy. The window was cracked, the shelves dusty. But on the back wall was a handbag, simple, worn, but beautiful to me. I reached out to touch it." She paused, eyes fixed not on Clare but on a memory only she could see. "The clerk slapped my hand away. He told me, 'Don't put your prints on things you can't afford.'" Claire's lips parted slightly, but she stayed silent. "I didn't cry," Maya continued. "I went home, found fabric scraps, and stitched them together until my fingers bled. That was my first handbag. Ugly, uneven, but mine." She took a step closer. Clare shrank an inch, but Maya didn't stop. "When I was 19, I interned at a fashion house. I was told not to touch the leather samples because, quote, your skin might stain the lighter fabrics. The executives would set their coffee cups on top of those same samples, rings of moisture seeping into the hide. But my hands were the danger." Her voice grew firmer. "I stitched silently. I sketched in the margins of discarded paper. I worked twice as long, twice as hard. Because I knew, if I gave them even a sliver of weakness, they'd use it to crush me." She leaned back slightly, folding her arms. "And when I launched this brand, Clare, the investors I pitched to ask me if I was the face of a white man's business. Because they couldn't imagine a black woman owning luxury." Her eyes locked onto Claire's. "So when you stood on that floor today and told me my hands were dirty, you weren't the first. But you might be the last to make that mistake in my house." Claire's face burned. Shame washed over her in waves, each stronger than the last. Her voice, when it finally came, was trembling. I didn't know who you were." Maya's expression didn't change. "And if I had been just another woman walking in off the street?" Clare hesitated. The silence stretched, accusing. Finally, she whispered, "I was wrong." "Wrong?" Maya asked quietly. "Or cruel?" Clare flinched. Tears welled at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. I thought you were someone who couldn't afford," Maya cut her off. "And you decided to humiliate me publicly. You wanted others to hear. You wanted to remind me where you thought I belonged." Claire's knees weakened, and she dropped into one of the office chairs, her hands clutching the edge of the table like an anchor. I don't know why I said it. It just came out. I wanted to look powerful. Maya tilted her head. Powerful? By stepping on someone else's dignity. The words landed like weights. Claire broke then, a sob escaping her throat. She covered her mouth, tears streaking her mascara. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't mean, yes, you did, Maya interrupted. Her tone wasn't cruel, it was precise, cutting through excuses. That's the point, Claire. You meant every word. You believed it when you said it. You thought it would never cost you anything. That's what prejudice is. It hides until you feel safe enough to let it out. Claire's shoulders shook. She wanted to disappear, to rewind time. But there was no rewinding. Not here. Maya walked slowly to the table and picked up a leather swatch. She held it up between two fingers. Do you know what makes leather strong? She asked. Claire looked up, confused, tears glistening. No. Maya ran her thumb over the swatch. It's the scars. The imperfections. The places where the animal lived, where it fought, where it survived. Those marks, when treated, make the leather tougher, more beautiful. She set the swatch down and leaned closer. People are the same. My scars, the insults, the rejections, the humiliations, they made me stronger. Strong enough to build something that people like you thought was impossible. Claire stared at her, chest heaving, shame flooding her veins. Maya's voice softened, but it carried iron beneath it. You wanted power on that floor today, Claire. Let me teach you something. Real power doesn't come from belittling others. It comes from lifting them, from seeing their worth, even when no one else does. Claire's tears flowed freely now. She pressed her palms to her face, muffling her sobs. I've ruined everything, she choked. My career, my dignity, not everything, Maya said quietly. But this moment will follow you. The question is, will you let it destroy you, or change you? Claire lowered her hands, her face streaked with mascara, her eyes red and raw. Can it change me? That's up to you. Maya picked up her handbag, slung it over her arm, and walked toward the door. She paused with her hand on the handle and looked back at Claire. I don't need your apology, she said softly. I need your transformation. Show me that the woman who spoke those words on the floor isn't the same one who will walk out with me now. Claire stared at her, trembling, broken, but something flickered in her eyes. Fear, yes, but also a glimmer of recognition. Maya opened the door. The sound of the boutique drifted in, whispers, footsteps, the rustle of bags. Come, Maya said. It's time for them to hear what you've learned. Claire rose slowly, unsteady on her feet, and followed. The door swung open, and the muted hum of the boutique poured back in. Heads turned instantly. The shoppers who had witnessed the confrontation earlier looked up, expectant, almost holding their breath. The air was thick with curiosity, judgment, and anticipation. Maya stepped out first, her posture tall, her gaze steady. Behind her, Claire followed, her shoulders hunched, her face still streaked with faint lines of dried mascara. The transformation in her appearance was stark. Where earlier she had strutted with arrogance, now she looked smaller, stripped of her armor. The boutique fell silent. Even the music, soft jazz flowing from hidden speakers, seemed to fade. Maya paused in the center of the room, turning slowly until her eyes swept across the customers, the associates, the silent audience. Her voice rose, calm yet commanding. People's worth, she began, is not measured by their skin color, their clothes, or what you assume they can afford. It is measured by their vision, their courage, and their work. The words hung like heavy silk in the air. A customer near the entrance nodded, murmuring, yes. Another leaned closer to hear more. Maya continued. What happened here today is not new. I have heard these words before. As a child, as a young woman, as a professional. Each time, the words were meant to make me small, to tell me where I didn't belong. Her gaze hardened, but her voice stayed even. But I stand here as the owner of this company. And I tell you this, prejudice does not define the person it is aimed at. It defines the one who speaks it. The pearl-clad woman who had earlier watched in silence wiped at the corner of her eye. The young couple leaned forward, listening intently. Maya gestured toward Claire. This woman thought her words would go unchallenged, that they would humiliate me. But today, she has learned that words have weight. And the heaviest weight is the shame of realizing you were wrong. Claire's throat tightened. She wanted to disappear, but Maya's eyes kept her rooted in place. Maya looked back at the crowd. Remember this moment, all of you. Because one day, you will face the choice Claire faced, whether to tear someone down, or to lift them up. Choose wisely. Silence reigned. Then, slowly, applause began. It started with the Pearl Woman, then the young couple, then spread until the entire boutique was clapping softly, not raucous, not theatrical, but respectful, steady, like rain on a roof. Claire's face burned hot. She wanted to run, but Maya turned to her one last time. And Claire, Maya's voice softened. Don't worry about these bags getting dirty. They already know who they belong to. The applause grew louder. Claire lowered her eyes, shame burning through her, but a strange relief too, like a wound finally being exposed to light. Maya turned and walked toward the exit. The customers parted like water, their eyes following her. Every step she took left behind silence, awe, and something deeper, a lesson carved into marble, leather, and memory. The boutique closed early that night. The last customer had left in a hush of whispers, and the staff moved quietly, almost reverently, as they tidied the displays. The usual chatter was gone. There was a heaviness in the air, a lingering echo of what had happened. Claire sat alone in the office, the lights dimmed, the silence pressing down on her like a weight. She stared at her own reflection in the glass door of a cabinet. The woman who stared back looked hollow. Her mascara had smudged into shadows beneath her eyes, her hair had loosened from its immaculate knot, and her shoulders sagged in a way they never had before. Her thoughts looped mercilessly, the sound of her own voice, sharp and ugly, ringing out across the boutique. Don't touch the bags with your black hands, they're getting dirty. She squeezed her eyes shut, but it didn't help. The words were etched into her brain, louder now than when she'd first said them. For the first time in her career, Claire felt powerless. Not because she had been corrected, but because she had been exposed, not just to others, but to herself. She could no longer deny what lay beneath the surface of her ambition, a hunger for superiority, a need to stand above someone else to feel tall. And she hated it. Still here? He asked gently. Claire looked away. I couldn't leave. He walked further in, closing the door behind him. It was a hard day. A hard day. Claire's laugh was bitter, humorless. Daniel, I humiliated myself. I humiliated the brand. Her voice cracked. I humiliated her. Daniel leaned against the table, folding his arms. You can't change what happened. But you can decide what you do with it. Claire shook her head, tears stinging her eyes again. What do I do with it? How do you come back from something like that? Daniel thought for a moment. By making sure it never happens again. By being different, not just saying you'll be different. Claire buried her face in her hands. She'll never forgive me. She doesn't need to, Daniel said simply. She asked for transformation, not apology. That's harder. But it's also real. The words sank deep. Claire sat in silence long after Daniel left, her chest aching with a mix of shame and a strange, fragile hope. In the days that followed, Claire walked through the boutique as if seeing it for the first time. She noticed things she had ignored before, the nervous way a young man in a faded jacket hesitated by the cheaper keychains, afraid to touch them. The way another associate's tone brightened for wealthier-looking customers and dulled for those in simple clothes. The subtle way people glanced at skin, at shoes, at watches before deciding how much attention to give. It was like a mirror had been turned on her, and she saw herself in every small cruelty. For the first week, the shame was unbearable. She wanted to quit, to run, to disappear. But something in Maya's words anchored her. I don't need your apology. I need your transformation. So she began to change. When the young man in the faded jacket returned, Claire greeted him warmly. She treated him with the same care she had once reserved for wealthy clients, guiding him through the displays without judgment. When he finally bought the cheapest item in the store, a keychain, his smile was brighter than any sale Claire had ever closed. Each day, she practiced. Each day, she caught herself, corrected herself, reshaped herself. And slowly, her colleagues began to notice. One evening, weeks later, Maya visited the boutique. The staff buzzed with nervous energy, whispering as she walked through the glass doors. She moved with her usual calm grace, her presence commanding but never loud. Claire froze when she saw her. Her stomach clenched, her throat dried. But she knew she couldn't hide. Gathering every scrap of courage, she approached. "Ms. Thompson," she said, her voice trembling. Maya turned, her gaze steady. "Claire." Claire's knees nearly buckled under the weight of that gaze. I've been trying," she said. Her words tumbled out, raw and unpolished. "Not to erase what I did, because I can't. But to be different. To treat people differently. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know." Maya studied her for a long moment. Then, softly, she said, "Change isn't words, Claire. It's habits. Consistency. Choice after choice." Claire nodded, tears filling her eyes again. "I know. And I'm trying. Every day." Maya gave the faintest of smiles, not approval, not yet, but acknowledgement. "Keep trying. Let your actions prove what your words cannot." Claire swallowed hard and nodded. For the first time since that terrible day, she felt a flicker of peace. Later that night, Maya returned to her studio. The city lights spilled across her workspace, where sketches and prototypes lay scattered. She picked up the very first bag she had ever made as a child, the uneven stitches, the rough fabric. She traced the lines with her fingers, remembering the sting of that clerk's voice, the countless times she'd been told she didn't belong. And now, she thought of Claire. Broken, humbled, but perhaps salvageable. Maya knew she couldn't fix prejudice in a day, or even in a lifetime. But if one person, just one, chose to change because of her, then maybe that was victory enough. She whispered into the quiet, "Scars don't weaken us. They strengthen us." Her reflection in the studio window smiled back, calm, steady, unshaken. Word of what had happened that day spread far beyond the boutique. Customers told friends. Friends told colleagues. Whispers grew into stories, of the store owner who had stood tall in the face of humiliation, who had turned cruelty into a lesson. Some dismissed it as gossip. Others repeated it with awe. But to those who had witnessed it, the moment lived like fire in memory. And for Claire, it became the dividing line in her life, before that day, and after. On a rainy evening months later, Claire left the boutique after closing. She passed a woman outside, standing under the awning to escape the downpour. The woman's clothes were simple, her shoes worn. Claire smiled and held the door open. "Come in," she said warmly. "You're welcome here." The woman hesitated, then stepped inside, dripping with rain but met with kindness. And somewhere across the city, Maya smiled without even knowing why, because her words had planted seeds that were beginning to grow.